Okay, I am Maggie and I will be presenting the first half of our semester-long project where we talk about 4 different Brazilian music styles. I will be focused on samba and lundu. So let's get into it. Samba is a lively Afro-Brazilian dance that originated from African slave dances of the Brazilian sugarcane plantations. This style of music and dance has the majority of its influence from African slaves and the music they brought to Brazil during the slave trade. It is a rhythmic dance and syncopated 2/4 time played mainly by strings and percussion. The roots of samba trace back hundreds of years, back to when African slaves were brought to Brazil. Even before the Portuguese came to Brazil, they were fascinated by African dancers and musicians. During the 1400s, the Portuguese pushed down the west coast of Africa in search of a sea route to India. During this time, they had run into many African musicians and had brought them back to Portugal in order to entertain the Portuguese with their new exotic music. Fast forward a few hundred years after Portugal took over Brazil, they brought almost a total of 5 million African slaves to Brazil, and with them came their music. European and African music were drastically different in many aspects. European music was very developed harmonically, where African tribal music was developed rhythmically. However, there were enough underlying similarities between the two styles that when they were blended together, it created great music. When brought to Brazil, these African slaves used foreign European folk tunes to make new music with their African roots. Thus, a type of hybrid music was then created, no longer African or only European, but now it is known as Afro-Brazilian music. Samba evolved mainly in Rio de Janeiro and has come to be one of the most known music styles in Brazil. Samba really began to become popular and evolve around the 1930s during the time that Vargas came to power and implemented the populist regime. During this time, Brazil was focused on national identity and what it meant to be Brazilian. Brazil in the 1930s was a wide mix of racial, ethnic, and regional identities, and the definition of what it meant to be Brazilian was blurred because of the mixed backgrounds and cultures of the people. Vargas and his regime became so focused on national identity that it even had a huge impact on policymaking. Samba was used as a symbol of national identity and a way to define what it meant to be Brazilian. Exaltation samba, a nationalist version of samba, arose during this time, played a huge role in defining Brazilian identity. It was a type of samba that praised Brazil and told a happy success story about the country in order to portray the country in a good light. Take some time to listen to Desayuno Aquaria do Brazil, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, and answer these questions. How do they portray Brazil in the video, and what do they make Brazil sound like in the lyrics? Because we have already studied the most important samba artists in this class like Noel Rosa and Carmen Miranda, I thought it would be interesting to find a current samba artist to see how the music sounds today. I chose Sergio Mendes, a mainly bossa nova singer who also incorporates jazz and funk into his songs for a more pop culture music style. He was most popular in the 60s and was even the top-selling Brazilian artist in the United States during this time as well. He has worked with famous American artists like John Legend and will.i.am. He has been writing and singing music for over 60 years and recently released an album in the year 2020. I picked one of his songs from his most recent album. Listen to his song Tangara and have a discussion of how the music sounds, what sounds the same, and what has changed or evolved over time. Now I have a video for you all to watch that teaches us the basic steps of samba. Take some time to watch the video and learn the dance.
Dancer of this sort. I thought it'd be cool to show you guys just like the basic steps in slow motion that we see in the tutorial video that I shared with you guys on my Google presentation. So first you kind of have to like start with your knees bent, and then when you go forward, you're gonna go ball, flat, ball, ball, flat. And then when you go backwards, the same thing, so you're gonna go ball, flat, ball, ball, flat. So sped up just a little bit, it's gonna be ball, flat, ball, ball, flat, ball, flat, ball, ball, flat.
I will now be moving on to Lundu. Lundu was introduced specifically by Bantu slaves from Angola that were imported into Brazil. Lundu is a very sensual and sexy couples dance. It was mainly performed during theater intermissions in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Even though it mostly disappeared after this time period, it is still important as it has played a huge role in being a building block for the history of music in Brazil. Lundu is known for its syncopated rhythm layered with harmonies and strung chords from the guitar. The lundu was originally a ring dance performed by African slaves with the help of percussion, but as it evolved, the guitar and piano had been added to the music. It has since become a flirtatious couples dance using the instruments like guitar, the Portuguese viola, and the piano. After becoming more popular in Brazil in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, its influence crossed the Atlantic and made it back to Portugal, where it grew and influenced Afro-Atlantic music. This laid the base for the machixe, which came shortly after the lundu. The guitar and Portuguese viola became important defining instruments in Afro-Brazilian music, but especially the guitar. The lundu eventually became the framework for many other music styles like choro, machixe, and samba. In these YouTube videos, you will see couples dancing the lundu. Because this dance isn't necessarily around anymore, it was hard to find a tutorial on how to dance this particular style. But as you watch the videos, reflect on a few things. Listen to the music and the instruments. How is the guitar being used in the song? Many believe that this type of dancing was very scandalous during this time period. Do you think that society would be more accepting of this style today, or do you think that this would still be considered too sexy? How has society changed their ideals on what's appropriate and what is not?